Well, it's turned out okay. Well, how many millions of books have you sold at this point?
It's over 3 million now.
Well, if anybody needs any proof that these are page turners, I think that's it right there, that they've sold. And as I said, the Pike Logan series of books get turned out at least one a year, sometimes two or more a year. Tell us a little bit about the background of the Pike Logan series.
Originally, what I wanted to do was write a story of redemption. Believe it or not, kind of the Rocky theme. That's what I set out to write. But everybody says write what you know, and I was a special forces officer, and so Pike became a counter-terrorist commando. And he works for an off-the-books agency called the Task Force. Project Prometheus is official term. And I did that on purpose because I served in a lot of classified units, and I didn't want anybody to say that I was, writing fiction, changing names, but writing about real units. So I created one that anybody working in that world would say, we don't have anything like that. Although people all the time ask me, is the task force real? No, it's not. Wish it was, but no, it's not.
Well, in the last 2 years, in 2020, you published Hunter Killer, and the book we're going to talk about today is American Traitor, which just came out here in January of 2021. 2020 was a weird year to publish and promote a book. Tell us a little bit about Hunter Killer.
Yeah, Hunter Killer came about because of the previous book, Daughter of War, where I had a real-world private military company called Wagner, which is from Russia, and they're all over the place. They're in Sudan, they're in Central African Republic, they're in Libya, Ukraine, obviously, Syria, obviously. And there was a story about them going to, when Maduro was having trouble in Venezuela, they sent a company of those guys down there to protect him. And I thought, that's kind of bold. And I keep up on national security affairs, and so I saw that story and started researching, not for a book, but because it interested me. And I came upon the clown fest of the election that was going on in Brazil at the time, where the leading candidate for president was actually in prison for corruption for the car wash scandal, which brought down his whole government. And they discovered the largest oil fields in the 20th century offshore, but they couldn't get out of the ground because the corruption was all through Petrobras, the state-owned oil company. And he had the Wagner guys running around. And I thought that's enough to make a story, and so I started doing it.
Well, I think that's one of the fascinating things about your work, Brad, and that is you're often writing with sort of 1 foot planted in reality and 1 foot over here and, hey, I get a little literary license because I'm writing a novel. Do you set out about to be in both worlds?
Yeah, I always like to ground in reality. There's a lot of real stuff that happens both in Hunter Killer and in all my books, actually. If there's some kind of story that has caught my eye, I'll put it in the book. For instance, American Traitor opens up with an F-35, or Joint Strike Fighter, crashing in the Sea of Japan. It was a Japanese F-35, and it flew into the ocean at 600 knots straight into it, and this was obliterated. And to this day, they don't know why it happened. They didn't. Nobody knows. It just crashed, and we were petrified that the Chinese were going to send a sub out there to get the technology and all that kind of stuff. So I took that. That's a real story, and the pilot interactions on the pages of that book are the actual radio transmissions. But then the literary license was, I said why it wrecked. So that was what I got to use for it.
Well, and you had to dream up a really creative weapon to do it, didn't you?
Yeah, which is basically, artificial intelligence. China's trying to take over the world, the lead with artificial intelligence, and they're actually winning at that, and we're sort of helping them. But if you could figure out a way, because all the sensors on that plane are run by software, if you figure out a way to corrupt the software, then what the pilot's seeing, he's not looking, at dead of night, he's looking at sensors. He's not looking at the horizon because you can't see anything out of the ocean. And if his sensors tell him he's doing one thing when he's really doing another, he's going to crash.
Like what you heard? Listen to this full episode and more on the Apple Podcasts app, Blog Talk Radio, Google Podcasts, or iHeartRadio. And now streaming on Amazon Music, Audible, and Spotify.